Hello everyone, welcome to the CSAT weekly session of LevelUp IAS. In today's session, we will further continue CSAT 2020 question paper reading comprehensions and we will see further passages of the paper. So, the first thing which we always do, we discuss the level of difficulty based on the length of the passages and the options that are given to you. So, this is the first passage. See, the passage is of short length and then you have the question जिसके options भी they are simple A B C D options. You do not have that big options or that assumptions in which you have to select 1 2 3 out of the above, right? So in that, although accuracy is more, but time, it is also time consuming. So one passage and a question with it. Next you have passage number 2. In this you have 2 questions. Then you have passage 3 with 1 question only. Passage 4 and 5. Okay. So you can see that in all the passages, they are almost of the same length, right? And then you have a question with options A, B, C, D. See, what we are observing is in CSAT reading comprehensions, the length or the number of questions in the passages, they are not varying as such. So level of difficulty कैसे increase हो रहा है? Level of difficulty is being increased in 2 kinds. One is that जो passage है, उसमें in some years length is more but only 1 question is there, right? One factor is that. The other factor is language and options जो है वो confusing हो रहे हैं, right? That is how level of difficulty is being increased in UPSC. Because see, UPSC also knows that you have a limited amount of time. उसमें आपको वही 27 questions जो कि basic trend है 27 questions of reading comprehensions, right? You have to do that. So वो भी उतना ही time के according passage की length में उतना changes नहीं लाएंगे, because they know that if they increase the length of passage so much, how will you attempt 27 questions of reading comprehensions, right? So उस length और उसमें change नहीं है, passage के topic में, language में, and then also in the options, type of options that you are getting, उसमें changes है, right? So now let's start with the very first question, very first passage. Passage 1. Again, we will follow the same approach. We will read the options first, then we'll see whether this passage is supporting those options or not. Right, and we saw that in most of the cases, let's say 80% of the cases, if we take a rough estimate, 80% of the cases, you can eliminate a lot of options by reading just the options. Bina passage padhe bhi, we can eliminate some options, right? Although not in all the passages, of course. जैसे in the previous video we did a passage जहां पर all the 4 options were seemingly suitable, right? So not in all the passages, but yes, बहुत सारे passages ऐसे होते हैं जहां पर 2 out of 4 options you can eliminate, right? So 50% work is done. Now, which one of the following is the most logical, rational inference that can be made from the above passage? Indian banking system is not able to help the country in its economic growth. Again, as I told you in the last video also, use your GS knowledge, use statements that you will in general also think that they are correct, right? अब एक author है, anybody who is writing a passage, first of all, you know, UPSC ने कहीं से passage लिया है, it must be an expert from a book or something, right? Newspaper से लिया होगा, book से लिया होगा, right? But do you think that किसी भी book और newspaper में ऐसा लिखा होगा कि Indian banking system is not able to help the country in its economic growth? This is not a logical thing to say, right? So option A will clearly not be our answer. We can eliminate it. Next, option B. Economic reforms that started in 1991 have not helped in improving the economy to expected levels. Again, we all have read about economic reforms. We know how they have helped. They have helped us to, you know, LPG reforms and everything. They have helped us to grow and achieve the level of GDP that we want. So, yeah. So again, this will not be one of the answers. बट इफ यू थिंक दैट फॉर टू एक्सपेक्टेड लेवल्स लेके चलोगे कि हाँ वी एक्सपेक्टेड पता नहीं 12-13% जीडीपी, तो दैट इज नॉट ट्रू, राइट? सो ऑप्शन बी अगेन you can eliminate, and further if you want to have a surety you can check using a passage. India lacks the institutional mechanism to deal with failure of banks. Now in general also we know that yes, we are still lacking the institutional mechanism to deal with failure of banks. Once banks go bankrupt or anything like that, so what happens is we do not have a proper mechanism for it. We read this in our GS also, right? Encouraging the foreign investments in our industrial sector is a good alternative to this sector's dependence on bank for credit. Now again, think about it logically. क्या will we say that banks पे dependent होने से better है कि आप foreign investments पर dependent हो? Is this a logical conclusion to draw, a logical rational inference that you can draw from a passage? So this is basically saying that foreign investments को आप encourage करो industrial sector में, but so that banks पर credit का dependence जो है वो कम हो जाए. See, in general this statement can be correct also, that yes, अगर banks पे बहुत ज़्यादा dependency है, of course it is not right to be dependent on one institution only, and we promote foreign investments, ठीक है, in various sectors we do promote FDI, FII, but we know that they are also at a limited extent, right? And then you cannot replace it with banks. Banks are the backbone of our financial economy, right? Of our economy. You need that. ठीक है, so आप उसको replace नहीं कर सकते with foreign investments, right? Because obviously foreign investments are not as reliable as our own banking system. ठीक है, so A and B, तो we can say that they are incorrect. C and D we were C using options, but mostly we are favoring C instead of D, because D में फिर भी we can find a contradiction, but C में it is very correct. Then bank credit to the industrial sector has started shrinking. Its decline has been a serious concern, as credit growth is essential to revive investment. The problem's origin lie in the incomplete reform of the last 25 years. Okay, an institutional change that should have followed the 1991 reform should have been setting up of a resolution corporation for banks. Okay, so एक institutional change that should have followed the 1991 reforms should have been, एक change क्या होना चाहिए था? Setting up of a resolution corporation for banks, so that अगर कुछ if banks want a resolution to a problem, वहां उसके लिए they should have a corporation. तो ये change होना चाहिए था, जो कि नहीं हुआ. In a market economy with booms and busts, banks should be allowed to set up and to fail. So basically हम क्या बात कर रहे हैं? बैंक्स के सेटअप होने का. बैंक्स अगर सेटअप होना चाहते हैं तो, and if they fail, then what will happen? Now we are talking about both the things. That means we are talking about what should happen if banks should be allowed to fail also. Okay, if they are failing, we should have that much of cushion to cover it. कि अगर banks are failing, what should be our next step, right? Today we cannot shut down banks because there is not proper system to shut them down. Weak loss-making banks continue to need more capital, right? So again, what we are talking about, more than half of the passage, we are talking about how shutting down of banks, failures of banks, and so on. So clear है कि हम यही बात कर रहे हैं. India lacks the institutional mechanism to deal with failure of banks. Option C is very much clear from this. You'll see reading comprehensions में most of the passages you can directly find the answer. ऐसा नहीं है कि confusing है. I agree that some passages are confusing and some options are also confusing, but then that is why we say accuracy is not supposed to be 100%, right? If it is 100%, very good. But then we do हम ऐसे थोड़ी करते हैं कि we attempt only such questions with 100% accuracy so that they will give us 67 marks. We attempt more questions. Again, why? We are smart. We have to have again cushion for it, cushion to handle the risk also, कि अगर कोई incorrect हो गया तो we have correct answer to cover the loss, right? So not like the banking system. Passage 2. India has a tremendous potential for solar energy. We all realize that we have to stop burning fossil fuels to meet our energy needs. But certain renewable resources are still going through their cost curves and learning curves to get the required amount of output. So, we all realize, हमें पता है कि हमें fossil fuels वाला बंद करना पड़ेगा, but certain renewable resources हैं जो कि still going through their cost curves and learning curves to get the required amount of output. Indian government has strongly committed to its target of reducing emissions by 33%. Indian government ने क्या कहा है? Emissions 33% by 2030. And towards this, it has initiated a strong push towards a gas-based economy and also invested heavily in renewable energy. So Indian government का अपना target है 33% reduce करना है. For that, we are pushing towards a gas-based economy and invest भी किया है in renewable energy. However, business houses are wary of investing too heavily in renewable energy at a time when the technology is not yet ready. So, business houses basically private government investment है, but private investment we know how important it is. वो नहीं है because इतनी technology ही नहीं है in this field. So, question is, which one of the following is the most logical and rational inference that can be made from the above passage? India's commitment to reduce emissions by 33% is unlikely to be achieved. Okay, so इस बारे में तो we are not saying, author का कोई opinion नहीं है. Author is saying that India का target है and government is doing that to achieve that target. But author का कोई opinion नहीं है कि emission reduce होगा या नहीं होगा. India should import gas rather than invest in renewable resources. Again, ये तो we are not saying this. The author has no point on it, no opinion on it. We are saying that government is pushing towards a gas-based economy, but ऐसा कुछ नहीं कहा कि इंडिया को import करना चाहिए gas rather than this. Also, this is not the inference of this passage. Getting renewable resources to market too soon may be costly, and India should put in more efforts in the exploration of natural gas. Now see. यहाँ पर क्या होता है? A lot of students get confused C and D में. So again, C option क्या बोल रहा है? Getting renewable resources to market too soon may be costly. See, India has tremendous potential for solar energy, renewable resource, right? We all realize that we have to stop burning fossil fuels, but certain renewable resources are still going through cost curve, learning curves to get required amount of output. तो अभी भी renewable resources जो है cost curve and learning curve से they are going through to get the required output. Indian government ने ये सब किया है, commit किया है gas based economy के लिए, सबके लिए. Although India should put in more efforts in the exploration of natural gas. Seems like, okay, this is correct. But what we are talking about is renewable resources. We are talking about how renewable resources में अभी technology नहीं है. We are talking about how cost नहीं cover हो रहा, right? Because they are still going through their cost curves and learning curves. So if you will think what is the author's point of view, option C will be our answer. Okay. So, also we are talking about renewable energy. Natural gas आप थोड़ी लोगे. Okay. We will not consider this one, option D for that. With reference to the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. Okay. Government often provide inefficient and costly subsidies for technologies that may not be ready in the near future. India's commitment of reducing emission by 33% by 2030 shall be on the basis of gas-based economy. Now, see, assumptions are not always to be made exactly from the passage, but then आप assumption भी जो करोगे आप उसको prove कर पाओ. ऐसी assumption होनी चाहिए. You should be able to prove it. So, if I say option 1 is correct, governments often provide inefficient and costly subsidies for technologies that may not be ready in the near future. ये तो हम prove कर सकते हैं. In the passage, the author has said that yes, government is investing heavily in this renewable energy, but private sector is not, because technology is not ready. अभी तक cost curve, learning curve चल रहा है. So yes, government is still investing. So option 1 I can prove, but option 2, India's commitment of reducing emission by this shall be on the basis of gas-based economy. Government is pushing towards it, but gas-based economy, is it even possible कि सिर्फ इसी के basis पर हम 33% reduce करेंगे? And ऐसा कहीं stated है that this is the approach that we are going to follow. So option 2, you cannot say that this is correct. Only one only, option A, this will be your answer, right? So moving on to the next one, that is passage 3. Okay, genome editing, genome modification. Again, I said that when you have a passage of your GS knowledge, apply that. Read the passage by start the passage by reading the options. With reference to the above passage, following assumptions have been made. Genome editing does not require transfer of genes from one plant to another. Through genome editing, chosen genes can be altered precisely in a manner akin to the natural process that helps plant to adapt to the environmental factor. So through genome editing, जो chosen genes होते हैं can be altered precisely in a manner akin to the natural process. जैसे natural process में alter होते हैं genes, वैसे ही हम alter कर सकते हैं so that plant जो है adapt to the environmental factors. See, in general, we know that both of these, if you have studied about it, you should know that both of these are correct. That genome editing does not require transfer of genes from one plant to another. आप उसी plant के genes में भी itself you can do that. ठीक है? But even if you don't know, if you read the passage, you will be able to understand. ठीक है? Genome, sometimes it is not always true that GS का कुछ भी topic आ जाए आपको वो आता हो. For example, genome editing, let's say maybe some of you don't know that. Then don't think of it like that कि भाई ये तो पता ही नहीं. Go on reading the passage. Passage तो इसीलिए given है. Let's read what the author is trying to say about genome editing. So, genome editing is different from genome modification. Genome editing typically involves finding the part of plant genome that could be changed to render it's less vulnerable. So, क्या है? Genome editing involves finding the part of plant genome that could be changed to render it less vulnerable to disease or resistant to certain herbicides or to increase yields. So, आप plant के genome में you find out that part जो कि you can edit and make it resistant and make it all of this कि increase करे yield वगैरह. Researchers use molecular scissors to dissect the genome and repair it. Okay, so wherever there is the problem, they dissect it, they join it together, and then you can, which is the process that occurs naturally when plants are under attack from disease. That means ये naturally भी occur करता है ये process, cutting and repairing. Okay, so and can throw up new mutations that enable plants to survive future attacks. अभी तक देखो, have we said that genome editing में दूसरे plant का require होता है? No, in itself they are cutting and joining. ठीक है? So then this evolutionary process can effectively be speeded up now that it is possible to examine plant genome in detail. So अब क्या है, आप इसको speed up कैसे कर सकते हो? Because हम plant का genome examine कर सकते हैं. We know where the problem lies in laboratories and create mechanisms through which relevant genes can be altered very precisely. So without reading also we said both are correct. After reading also you can see that genome editing does not require the transfer of genes from one plant to another. Yes, it does not require. Within the plant itself it can happen, and then through genome editing chosen genes can be altered precisely in a manner akin to natural process. Of course it can be altered precisely. This is the process in itself. Natural process से ही seeker, we have developed those molecular scissors so that we are cutting the part that is infected or whatever needs to be done, and then we are joining back the rest of it. So this was your second passage. This was passage 3. Now moving on to the fourth passage. In this one you have, many people understand the connection between solid waste management and health in terms of the consequences of unattended heaps of dry garbage which become home for flies and other vermin. So many people understand connection between solid waste management and health. कैसे solid waste management और health का connection? Most of the people think that जो dry garbage है उससे we know flies and other insects sit on it, then they fly back to your place. So obviously they are infecting. However, there is another aspect that is not well understood. That is what happens when unscientific solid waste management combines with poor drainage and dumping of untreated sewage into drains, which are meant to carry storm water during rains. The result is choked drains, which are full of stagnant water breeding mosquitoes, resulting in spread of waterborne disease. So, अभी तक हमने in the first statement itself, author says कि solid waste management में हम ये तो समझ जाते हैं कि अगर आपने waste management नहीं की, there is a place where the waste is lying. Flies are sitting on it, flies will infect you also, your food, your place and everything. But there is one more aspect कि आप वो जो मैनेजमेंट कर रहे हो वो भी if the process followed is not correct, then what will happen is वो पुअर ड्रेनेज के साथ कंबाइन होगा, कैरी स्टॉर्म वाटर ड्यूरिंग रेन्स में वो वाटर कैरी करेगा एंड इट विल अफेक्ट दैट वाटर वो वाटर गंदा होगा, उससे क्या होगा, वाटर बॉर्न डिजीजेस, राइट? सो in context of India, which one of the following statement best reflects the critical message of the passage? Then, in India, drainage networks are not separate for sewerage and storm water. See, again, ऐसा नहीं है कि ड्रेनेज नेटवर्क सेपरेट नहीं है, बट सही से मैनेजमेंट नहीं होगा तो दैट विल अफेक्ट इट, राइट? तो इफ करेक्ट मैनेजमेंट इज नॉट देयर, देन दे गेट कनेक्टेड एंड एवरीथिंग, ठीक है? अर्बन लोकल बॉडीज do not have enough resources and legislative authority to deal with the problems of waste management. इसके बारे में तो we have not talked about this कि urban local bodies के पास इतने resources है या नहीं. We are talking about solid waste management. It should be done in the correct manner, but we are not saying कि urban local bodies के पास इतने ये authority and ये सब resources ही नहीं है. Solid waste management should be integrated with मेंटेनेंस ऑफ ड्रेनेज एंड सीवरेज नेटवर्क. बहुत सिंपल सी बात है, यही बात कर रहे थे कि पहली लाइन में आपने बताया सॉलिड वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट तो होनी ही चाहिए इन जनरल बिकॉज ऑफ फ्लाइज एंड एवरीथिंग, बट वो ड्रेनेज और सीवरेज में भी जाकर प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट करता है. सो सॉलिड वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट को आप इंडिविजुअली सिर्फ उसके लिए मत देखो, ऑल्सो लुक एट इट फ्रॉम दिस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू कि ड्रेनेज एंड सीवरेज के वहां पर भी इट डज नॉट लीड टू वाटरबॉर्न डिजीजेस. सो यस, solid waste management should be integrated with maintenance of drainage and sewerage networks. Now, option D, bad management of solid waste and sewerage system by our municipalities is the reason for drinking water shortages in our city. Again, firstly, आप ऐसे blame नहीं कर सकते because हमें passage में पता ही नहीं कि they are managing it correctly or they are managing it how are they managing it, we do not know. Then this is the reason for drinking water shortages in our city. इसी वजह से drinking water shortage हो रही है, waterborne diseases हो रहे हैं. Maybe yes, that drinking water shortage also is there a little bit, but that is the reason because municipalities are not handling this. And then even if you think that this is correct, is it mentioned in the passage? Passage में ये बात ही नहीं की. We are not talking about who is responsible, we are talking about the problem. हम ये नहीं बोल रहे कि प्रॉब्लम कॉज कौन कर रहा है, कौन ठीक से सॉलिड वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट नहीं कर रहा है, इसके बारे में बात नहीं हो रही. वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट कि मैनेजमेंट नहीं होगी तो क्या होगा. ओके, सो नेक्स्ट पैसेज 5. इन दिस यू हैव पार्ट 3 ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. Okay, so again, firstly, we'll just read the question and the answers first. What is the most logical inference from the above passage? State shall not interfere with the religious affairs of citizens. Again, logically, rationally, you have to draw the inference. In our country, it is not that state interfere nahi karega. However, state is at equal distance from each religion. ठीक है, ऐसा नहीं कि state interfere नहीं कर सकता. State is at equal distance from each religion, right? So state shall not interfere with the religious affairs of the citizens. This is incorrect. Now, why am I only considering our country? Because Part 3 of the Constitution, we are talking about Part 3 of our Constitution. So we will talk about what our country's point of view is. ठीक है? Next, religious freedom under the Constitution is open to state intervention. Now, obviously, this is correct. Religious freedom is under, is open to state intervention. We know that. We have read this in fundamental rights also. That state is at equal distance. That means ऐसा नहीं कि state interfere नहीं कर सकता. State can interfere, state can intervene also, right? And it is open to state intervention. Religious freedom of citizen is not covered under fundamental rights. Religious freedom तो covered है under fundamental right. This is very, very incorrect. Religious practices of any community are immune to state laws. ये थोड़ी होता है. We know a lot of religious practices that are not immune to state laws. जो आप laws बनाते हो वो आपको follow करने पड़ेंगे, no matter what religion it is, right? So, according to this, option B is our answer. But let's just read the passage. In general, this passage is stating Part 3 of the Constitution के बारे में. We know Part 3 of the Constitution by now. We know it by heart. If we are going for a GS examination, हम polity पढ़ चुके हैं. Part 3 में पता है, हमें fundamental rights में पता है. We know the position of our state with respect to religion. We know option B is going to be our answer in general also. But then Part 3 of the Constitution, which assures people certain fundamental rights, Article 25 proclaims that all persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and the right freely to profess, practice, and propagate religion. What people fail to notice is that this proclamation is prefixed with the words subject to public order, morality, health, other provisions of this part, which set conditions precedent for legal protection of religious practices of any community. The closing words of this prefatory rider in Article 25 virtually constitute a subordination clause, placing other fundamental rights mentioned in Part 3 over and above the right to religious freedom. ठीक है कि public order, morality, health ये सब over and above right to freedom. That means यहाँ पर नहीं होगा. This is important. This is also a prefactor. Then, among those other fundamental rights is the right to equality before law. This is above this. Then, equal protection of laws assured at the outset and elaborated in later articles to mean inter alia that the state shall not deny equal protection of laws to any person or group of persons on the basis of religion alone. So, सिर्फ रिलीजन के बेसिस पर आप डिनाई नहीं कर सकते that you are of this religion, you will not be given this, or you will not be given that. You cannot discriminate with people on the basis of religion alone, but state can interfere. State, in fact, right to equality is above it. आप ये नहीं बोल सकते कि ये इस रिलीजन का, ये इस रिलीजन का. नो, इक्वालिटी में you have to consider each and every person irrespective of their religion, right? So we have done that already. So option B, religious freedom under the Constitution is open to state intervention. That yes, religion freedom hai, but state can intervene whenever they feel that other rights are being violated because of it. Okay. So these were the passages of your CSAT 2020 question paper. We are still left with a few which we will cover in the next video. And again, if you have any doubts, please feel free to ask. And I will see you in the next session. Thank you so much for watching.